4 little girls reportedly shot by the one person meant to protect them, their own mother. 3 are dead and the 4th is fighting for her life. It happened in Byron, Wyoming, a town where violent crime is rare and neighbors know each other by name. A quiet community where tragedies like this just don't happen. But behind one of those doors, inside one of those homes, something unthinkable did happen. Police say a mom turned a gun on her own children before taking her own life, leaving behind a crime scene so horrific it has shaken this tight-knit community to its core. Now the community is left searching for answers. What could drive a mother to kill her own children? Were there warning signs? And could anything have been done to stop it? We'll break down the investigation, the unanswered questions, and the latest update from the lone survivor. For Law and Crime News, I'm Kennedi Walker. The tragic end for Tranyelle Harshman is one no one could have predicted. Friends say she was more than a mother. She was their rock, their family, a woman who was constantly present in the lives of those she loved. Online, she's described as an incredible mother, raising her daughters to be authentic, loving, and respectful. But something changed. And on that fateful day, she reportedly made a choice that shattered her family. According to the Bighorn County Sheriff's Office, at 1:30 p.m. on Monday, February 10th, dispatchers received a call from Tranyelle. She told them her daughters had been shot, and she believed they were dead. She shared that 2 of her daughters were upstairs in their cribs, while the other 2 were downstairs in their shared bedroom. Then the mother of 4 said something chilling. She stated when they arrived, she would be found in her upstairs bedroom, and she was going to take her life as well. According to the release, the dispatcher pleaded with Harshman to stay on the phone until help arrived, but the mom reportedly replied over and over that it was too late. Despite repeated attempts to keep the call connected, the line allegedly went dead. Law enforcement arrived just minutes later and found the heart-wrenching scene. Inside were 4 children, ages 9, 7, and 2-year-old twins, all with gunshot wounds to the head. Their mother was also found with a gunshot wound to the head. 2 girls were instantly pronounced dead, and one of the twins passed away shortly after first responders arrived. But in the midst of this unspeakable nightmare, there was one glimmer of hope: a survivor. 7-year-old Olivia was still holding on. She was airlifted to Primary Children's Hospital in Salt Lake City. We've blurred her face in these photos. And as hope hung on for Olivia, her mother's fate was still uncertain. Despite her severe injuries, Tranyelle was alive when first responders got there and was quickly taken to the hospital. While Olivia's story is still unfolding, the emotional toll of this tragedy goes beyond physical injuries. The psychological impact on a child exposed to such extreme violence is often just as devastating and sometimes more lasting. To help us understand the deep effects that this type of trauma has on people, we have Dr. Daniel Bober. Doctor, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
So first, before we, dive into the psychological effects on children, I think one of the first questions on everyone's mind is what would motivate a mother to kill her own children? Like, what are some of the possible reasons?
So, when I first heard about this case, it actually reminded me of Andrea Yates. This crime actually has a technical name, and it's called filicide, which is a parent killing a child. There's different reasons that a parent would kill their own child. For example, Andrea Yates, she killed her child because she was under a psychotic delusion. She believed that killing them would save them from eternal damnation. So in a way, she believed that she was helping them by taking them with her. That's called an altruistic filicide. So in her particular case, there were 2 elements. So she was under the influence of a delusion, which was psychosis. And then also she believed she was helping her children by taking them with her in some perverse way. There's also other types of filicide, unwanted filicide. For example, a parent who doesn't want a child, you usually see this with a neonate. And then, of course, there's accidental filicide, where a child is killed in the context of abuse, where the parent didn't mean to kill them, but they pushed it too far and they died. And then finally, in the context of spousal revenge, one parent trying to get back at another parent may kill children as well. But they are very rare phenomenon. Sometimes we like to look at these homicide suicides in the context of what we call an extended suicide. In other words, killing a bunch of people and then taking yourself out. This is also known sometimes as suicide by proxy or familial suicide. And sometimes the children are so enmeshed with the mother that the mother feels that they are an extension of her and that if she is going to leave this world, she cannot leave them without her, so she takes them with her.
So in a way, potentially, I mean, we will never be able to understand truly what was going on through that mother's mind, but she may have been thinking that she was helping.
Right. She may have been thinking in some way that she was doing them a favor, that she was leaving a cruel world, maybe due to societal pressure, financial hardships, abuse by another parent. We don't really know. It's going to come down to what her relationship was like with other people before it happened in the days leading up to it. Was there a history of domestic violence? Was she under the influence of substances? Did she have a mental health history? These are all things we need to look at. Her social media, her phone, all the people that she came into contact with. This will really help us narrow down what the motive is.
And I'm sure we'll learn more information in the coming days. But switching gears here, doctor, we know that children process trauma differently than adults. Can you walk us through how a child like Olivia, who has survived something so violent, might begin to process what happened?
So children do process trauma differently. So we have to put trauma in a developmental context when we're talking about it. Children tend to act out their feelings. They're less about verbalizing their feelings. So where an adult might tell you, that's something that's really scary to me, or I had a nightmare about it, or I don't want to go into that mall because it reminds me of XYZ. Children tend to act out their feelings. So they may wet the bed. They may complain of a stomach ache. They may refuse to go to school. They may act out against other kids. They may bite them. They may, put holes in the wall because they're not able to put words to those feelings. So very often they act them out.
And what are those long-term psychological effects for children who experience or witness such extreme violence at a young age? Are there specific challenges that they may face as they get older?
So certainly, it sounds like it's a cliche, but kids are resilient. So the majority of kids will do okay. But you need to watch out for these signs, right? You need to watch out if they're acting out, if they're wetting the bed, if they're doing anything that seems like it's not part of their baseline behavior, and it may be a focus of clinical attention. It's important to intervene early so they can be helped.
And speaking of that, how can her family help her in the recovery process? Are there ways that they can assist in rebuilding her trust and sense of safety?
Yes, the most important thing is to provide a sense of safety, a social support network, putting her in a loving and nurturing environment, so that she can have the best possible outcome. But this is something that's an unimaginable trauma, so it's something that can affect her for years potentially.
And I know you kind of touched on this already. Maybe a child may be, wetting the bed. They may say their stomach is hurting. But, how can parents or caregivers help their child who may be experiencing something, so traumatic, help them open up and communicate their emotions, even if they do seem scared?
So one way, depending on the age of the child, is obviously to keep an open line of communication. But if the child is really young, sometimes we use something called play therapy, where we get on the floor with the child and we use toys or dolls to sort of relate to them and see if we can elicit feelings that way. So that's one possible way as well.
Now, this is something that, there's no timetable or timeline. We don't know how long it's going to take for someone to, quote unquote, move past something like this, if she ever will. But, what can the family do? How important is a support system for a child's healing process after experiencing trauma?
Oh, it's absolutely essential. I mean, I think when people go through something like this, the most important thing is routines, because routines promote predictability and stability. Trying to go to bed the same time every night, waking up in the morning, getting on a routine. Predictability is really what helps people get through this. They need that structure to feel a sense of safety.
And do you recommend, therapy after something like this? Are there specific therapies that work best for younger children?
There are. Play therapy is very good. It's important not to re-traumatize the child. In other words, we know that in certain types of traumatic situations, we can actually make it worse by having them discuss the trauma right after it happens. So it's important to let things kind of unfold at their own pace, and not force it.
And lastly, how can schools or, social environments play a role in helping a child like Olivia heal when she is able, to get back in that routine that you mentioned? What steps can teachers or counselors or even friends take to support and help her?
So you raise an excellent point. When a trauma like this happens, it not only affects the people in the family, but it affects the first responders. It affects the community as a whole. So the schools play a critical role in this recovery because very often the kids are spending as much time at school, if not more, as they are at home. So the teachers, the guidance counselors, the administrators can all play a role in making sure that the child is in a safe environment and that they're being responsive to the child's needs should their behavior deteriorate in the school setting. So it's essential.
Thank you so much for joining us, Doctor. I know this is a case that everyone will be following closely, and, we're hoping Olivia pulls through.
Thank you. Truly tragic case.
Olivia's family has made a GoFundMe, and it says the 7-year-old suffered from a severe traumatic brain injury. They're asking the community to donate, and the money will be used for Olivia's medical care and a funeral for Olivia's older sister that was killed, Braylee. For Law and Crime News, I'm Kennedi Walker.